Are you a Martha or are you a Mary? Are you one who greatly desires to serve others to the point of neglecting things that you should be doing? Or are you one who sort of lets things go in order to take in the mood of the moment? In today's gospel, we have contrast between the two sisters. You can imagine Martha going about, preparing things, being hostess to our Lord and other people, and to Mary as well, all the while grumbling under her breath about how irritated she was that Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus, doing nothing to help her. How dare she be that way? When she complains to Jesus that Mary is not helping her, and even demands that he tell Mary to get up and help, I suspect she was not prepared for Jesus' response. When Jesus said her name twice, emphasizing what he was about to say to her, namely, he said that her desire to be a good hostess and serve her guests was admirable, but she had taken it to the point of being distracted and anxious. She was missing out on what Jesus was telling Mary. So Martha gets a little rebuke from Jesus, not for what she was doing, being of service, and the Greek word that Luke used here is diakonia, from which we get our word deacon, a man who serves. She gets that rebuke from Jesus, not for what she was doing, but for being so upset, or in the words of Jesus, distracted and anxious. I bet it really rankled her when Jesus said that. By sitting at his feet and listening to him, Mary had chosen the better part. I can just imagine her just seething. The lesson we should take from this episode in the life of Christ is that there are two dimensions in the spiritual life: action, or Martha, and contemplation, or Mary. The church father Origen of Alexandria wrote that the active life, being of service, doing things for love of God and for others, is one part of the spiritual life, and so is contemplation. Meditation oriented toward love of God, toward listening to God, and pondering the truths of the faith. Action and contemplation are both essential to our spiritual life. You can't commit to a sense of service to your family, your neighbor, or God without also engaging in contemplation of who God is, of what he wants for us, of his love for us. We must focus on Jesus because of who he is, because of the immediacy of his being for us, and let go of our sense of need to pay attention to be attracted to the things of life that don't matter, things and processes that will always be there later. Contemplation of Jesus should take precedence over the things that Jesus says can be distracting or make us anxious. And the way we blend these two aspects of our lives is through prayer. We don't want our active service to be driven by distraction and anxiety, not ordered to Christ. That can result in not engaging in contemplation of the love of God for us and of his truths that strengthen us in our lives. That is why it is important to have periods of silence in our prayer. To say to God that we are going to place ourselves in his presence and allow him to talk to us rather than the other way around. In other words, when we sit down to pray, we don't say, God, shut up so I can talk to you. We say, God, I will shut up so you can talk to me. He doesn't need a microphone. St. Francis de Sales said it well. Half an hour's meditation each day is essential, except when you're really busy. Then a full hour is needed. Philosopher Dr. Peter Craig points out how, he's quoting, amazingly freeing it is to let go of the worries that afflicted Martha and become like Mary. Sometimes we are literally addicted to the things and activities of life to the detriment of rest in God. And contemplating Him in silence and prayer. Ditching attachment to those things liberates us. Now, this is a segue into something completely different, but I've been thinking about some of the things that need attention regarding our worship, not just here, but in other places, especially in churches in Dallas where I've been recently. And I'm going to mention some while trying not to sound Martha-ish, without sounding like I'm tattling on you or anybody else. I've noticed here and in the parishes in Dallas that after all the masses, there are folks lingering here in the neighborhood church carrying out loud conversations, animated conversations, visiting with people, having a nice time. Please don't do that here. Do it outside. Take your conversations outside so people who want to pray their Thanksgiving after Mass can do so undistracted. And that applies to before Mass as well. No conversations in the pews. I was at a daily Mass last week at one of the churches in Dallas, and this little lady came in and she made a point of visiting several people, going around visiting, talking out loud before Mass. It's really disturbing. Let those who are praying before Mass do so without distraction. And when you're in the church and you possibly see that someone can open the tabernacle, genuflect and stay on your knee until it is closed, out of reverence for our blessed Lord in the tabernacle. This weekend is going to continue to be really hot, but that is not an excuse to come to Holy Mass outfitted for the pool or the beach. St. Jude's does not have a pool, so you don't come wearing flip-flops or tank tops or new shorts, cut-off shorts. Those things are not seemly, given the fact that you're coming to worship before the King of the universe. So it's unseemly for people, and I mean men and women, to come dressed in shorts, tank tops, flip-flops, or worse, half-dressed and dressed in their skirts that barely cover one's backside, wearing tube tops or flimsy garments barely supported by spaghetti straps or less. Some of these outfits have no visible means of support. I read an article a couple of weeks ago by a woman who decided one weekend to dress up for Holy Mass. She said, I don't know what it was, but I just was inspired to dress up. And she wrote that it completely changed her attitude toward the Mass. Her making the effort to spiff up for the Lord made her more attentive, and it increased her reverence for the Holy Mass. And eventually she even took up the practice of wearing a veil to Holy Mass, as many of you do. Our Lord deserves, at the least, that we dress as if we were having an audience with the Pope in Rome, or the President in the White House. Now, some of you may think that I'm being overly fussy and Martha-ish, and perhaps even scrupulous about these things. And that's fine. We can think whatever we'd like. But we should not, however, be cavalier about the reverence or lack thereof that we show to our Lord in the holy sacrifice of the Mass. One of the reasons the church is in the mess that she's in today stems from the fact that fewer than 50% of Catholics, in fact, I think it's been said it's more like 25%, including sadly even priests and many bishops, fewer than 50% now actually believe in the real presence of our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. Now, since it is my responsibility as Father Baldwin as priest to help you to get to heaven and to avoid hell, I'm going to continue to do all I can to maintain reverence for our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. That's one of the many reasons we continue to pray the prayers after Mass. We invoke Our Lady, God the Father, St. Michael the Archangel, and the saints to protect the Church against all the attacks against her, whether they